Well, welcome back to North Shore Youth. Again, thank you guys for being here. It's been a few weeks since we've actually met like this. 3 weeks ago, we had youth camp in Lexington. 2 weeks ago, we had a game night. And then last week, we had kids camp. And so I'm excited to be back to summer streaming, back to just regular youth, to be able to hang out with you guys, do squad wars, all that fun stuff. So thank you guys for being here. If there's somebody here or somebody that's not here that you see should be here, shoot them a text, let them know that you miss them, that they should be here next week, because next Wednesday is our final summer streaming Wednesday, and then the following is the final battle at Hastings Lake, so make sure that you turn up for that. But I'm super excited to be back, so thank you guys for being here. Again, if you're here for the very first time and I haven't met you, my name is Dylan. I'm the youth pastor here. I would love to meet you after service, so come and find me. I have a gift that I want to give you just to say thanks for being here. But you guys know the drill. Go ahead and grab your notes. Get ready to jot some stuff down. Also, shout out to those who came and helped with kids camp last week. Who are you? Right? Man, kids camp last week was amazing. That's why we didn't meet for youth. We had 160 kids here all week long. We had 93 volunteers all week long, and so it was amazing. If you missed out, you can volunteer next year because it will change your life. Just getting to pour into the lives of these kids, it was awesome. So anyways, we're back in our summer streaming binge. All summer long, we have been looking at bits of blockbuster hits and sections of TV series to pull out some spiritual truths and build some biblical foundations. And so that's what we're doing. If you've missed any of these messages, you can find them on our YouTube channel, on our Facebook page, on our Instagram page, all that kind of stuff. So make sure that you're following us on our socials. Obviously, tonight's clip was Independence Day. How many of you guys have seen Independence Day? Like 3 people. Do you guys know what Independence Day is? Not like the holiday, but the movie. With Will Smith, and aliens come and they invade Earth, and so like everybody on Earth has to like band together to get rid of the aliens, you know what I'm talking about? Right? It's an awesome movie. It's really, really cheesy. Obviously, the intro clip, it feels a little bit cheesy. It kind of gets you pumped up, but it's also like this is a little bit sus. But anyways, I enjoy it. Did you guys have a good 4th of July? Anybody? Independence Day. I thought this would be sort of a good nod to the fact that we just had the 4th of July on Sunday. And I feel like this really hits the nail on the head for the things that I want to talk about tonight. The President of the United States, he steps up and he grabs that mic and he begins to rally his troops, right? He begins to rally his troops. He begins to tell them, we're not going to go quietly into the night, right? We're not going to go down without a fight. This is going to be the entire world's Independence Day. And really, as I'm listening to that, it kind of sticks out that he's basically saying, independently, our independence is going to be lost. Does that make sense? He's saying, independently, our independence is going to be lost. That his independence, the president, as he's talking, his independence is dependent on other people. Does this make sense? Are you following me a little bit? Okay, I'm going to get deeper into that here in just a minute, but I think that's something that I want us to think about, is that independently, our independence is going to be lost. And so tonight, I want to talk to you about living in dependence. Living in dependence. I know that you've already kind of talked about independence and what that looks like in your squad times and the discussion time that you had there. So I'm going to go down a little bit of a different road. I know that you talked a little bit about what the fruit of having Jesus in your life looks like as well. But so I want to just talk to you for a little while. Living in dependence. Did everybody have a good 4th of July? Yes? Did anybody do something really cool? What did you do? Shot some guns? Man, America, right? You went to an air show? That's awesome. Your parents got married on the 3rd? Let's go. Hooray for marriage. I love that. Anybody else do anything fun? Yes. You went where? A 30-mile hike? I don't know if that sounds like fun, but congratulations on hiking 30 miles. That's good. That's good. Well, my wife and I, actually, it's my wife's favorite holiday. 4th of July is her all-time favorite holiday. She loves the fireworks. She loves outside. She loves the heat and the humidity because she's crazy. 4th of July is her absolute favorite. So we had a really, really good weekend. On Friday, we went to Dave Zock's house. If you know who Dave Zock is, he owns Easy Kitchens here in town, and he had like it's the best fireworks show that I've ever seen in my life. Like legit, so good. It felt like we were watching Disney World fireworks. You know what I'm talking about, right, Abram? It was the best. It felt like the entire time was a finale. Like this has to be it, and it just keeps going. This has to be it. And it just keeps going. Like, it was the best fireworks show, and so we really enjoyed that. And then Saturday night, after our kids went to bed, we got our kayaks out, and because we just live right over here by Hastings Lake, and we kayaked out on Hastings Lake. We had a babysitter come to our house and kind of just hang out there while our kids slept. We went kayaking and just watched people light off fireworks over the lake. And so that was really, really cool. And as we were doing that, it got me thinking about one of these times that I went kayaking. I love kayaking now, but I didn't always. So I was thinking about, like, I think it was my second time ever kayaking. My first time ever kayaking was on our honeymoon, and it did not go well. Kayaking in the ocean in Cozumel, Mexico, did not go well. So the second time ever kayaking, it was over the 4th of July, and we were with a bunch of friends. This was probably 5 years ago. And so we get together with our friends, and we go down, we drive over to this river, and we're going to go kayaking. And I am honestly not excited about it. I had a terrible experience kayaking on my honeymoon. This was my second time ever. I was not stoked about it. And honestly, I hate water. Anybody else? Like lake or river water, like it's just gross to me. I love to swim, but lake water, if I can't see what's around me, I'm not about it. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Anybody feel that way? Like we were in this river and the water's murky and it's moving and I just can't see what's around me. And it freaks me out because honestly, fish are scumbags. You know what I'm talking about? Like fish are the worst. They nibble at you and they swim up your shorts and they're just like slimy and slippery and gross. And I hate the fish and I hate that I can't see what they're doing. And so I wasn't super stoked about this, but I went along with it anyways. And so we get our kayaks in the water and we get going. And beforehand, everything was fine. And even at the start of it, everything was going okay until my kayak sank. So here's what happened. I was told when we started this trip that there would be no rapids, that there would be 0 rapids in this river. And so we're going down, and there was like level 15 rapids, okay? I don't know what levels rapids go in, but there was at least level 15. Like these rapids were massive and they were bumpy, and I'm big, and so I'm kind of tippy. I was in like this tiny little kayak, and I was just struggling to get through. And so I'm going down and going down. I'm like trying not to tip over because I don't want to deal with the scumbags in the water. And then at one point I hit a rock. And when I hit that rock, my kayak turned. So I'm not going straight with the river anymore. My kayak is this way. And now that I'm this way, the current is fairly strong and it's pushing against me. And so it's pushing me up onto the rock, and I'm kind of curving. And as I curve up, the water begins to rush into my kayak and begins to pull my kayak down. And it is filling up fast. And I'm a big dude, and this was a small kayak. And so I'm trying to get out. I'm like trying to shimmy out of the kayak so I don't have to deal with those nasty little like swimmy things in the water because they're just gross. And so I'm trying to get out of my kayak, and I'm trying to like lift my kayak up out of the water. And about the same time as I'm struggling with that, one of our friends, her name was Annie, she weighs like 110 pounds soaking wet. And so she kayaks over to me, like across the current, and kayaks over to me. And I don't know how she like magically stopped her kayak to help me, but she like gets out of her kayak as I get out of mine. I'm standing on the rock that my kayak is on, and I'm trying to like lift it, but it's full of water. You know what I'm talking about? And this thing is heavy. And so she comes over, and I'm like, what are you going to do? But I'm thinking to myself, like, I can do this. You know what I'm talking about? Like, I got this. And so I told her, nope, don't help. I got this. Somebody say, I got this. Honestly, I didn't got this. So I'm trying to lift up this kayak. It's full of water. It will not budge. She's there. She's like trying to like get in and help. I'm like, no, you don't. Don't do it. I'm going to do it. And so I'm trying to get it, and I'm getting so frustrated, but I'm trying to put a smile on like everything's fine. Everything's fine. There's no problem here. Everything's good. Annie, just keep kayaking along. And eventually, she ignored my pride, and she helped me lift my kayak as much as we could to kind of tip it back and pour most of the water out to the point where I was just kind of like, my kayak was like a low rider the rest of the time. You know what I'm talking about? So we got a lot of the water out, and we get going. Finally, I lost a sandal in the process, which was really frustrating. So we get going. and we're going back with the current. I'm trying to avoid the rapids because I don't want this to happen again. And we get to a point where there's a fork in the like river, and there's this like big sand barge bank right in the middle. And I see Annie, and she goes right, and I'm watching her go, and I'm like, there's like level 30 rapids down there. What are you doing? And I see this spot over here, and it looks fairly calm. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go left. And so I go left, and the second I go left, I hit another rock. And I get stuck again. And she's over here, and she sees me get stuck, and she, like, tries to turn around and try to paddle back to me, but she's, like, fighting the current. And I'm like, nope, it's okay. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Inside, I'm, like, saying every, like, cuss word substitute that I know. You know what I'm talking about? Like, I was so frustrated, but I'm trying to put on this happy face. Like, everything is going to be fine. And I don't want to get out of my kayak this time, so I'm, like, pushing with my paddle to get off. And finally, I got unstuck, and we ended up, everything was fine. I didn't die. Obviously, I'm here today. And the reason I tell you this super embarrassing story about my second ever kayaking experience is because it took way longer for me to get unstuck because I refused to ask for help. Does this make sense? It took way longer for me to get unstuck because I refused to ask for help. I had to do it myself because I was embarrassed to admit that I was struggling. So I just put that fake smile on and just said, I got it. Is this relatable or not? Anybody been there? We put that smile on. Man, I got it. Don't worry about me. Everything is fine. But what I want us to know, or what I want us to understand tonight as we talk about this, is that independently, we will fail. Yeah? Independently, our independence will be lost. If you're taking notes, write that down. Independently, our independence will be lost. All alone, we cannot get ourselves free and keep ourselves free from the struggles that hold us back, from the things that sink our boats, from the things that keep us captive. Hear me? All alone, we will not be able to find victory in any of those things. And so as Christians, we have adopted this mentality of, I got this. Nobody needs to know that I'm struggling. I'm fine. Everything is okay. Because we want to be seen as independent, right? How many of you guys like to be independent? If you have your driver's license, it's nice, right? I can leave the house. I can go get my own food. Sometimes I got to pay for my own gas, which stinks, but I'm independent, right? Anybody feel that way? As we get older, we gain more and more independence, and we like that. And independence can be a good thing, but when we refuse to admit that we're struggling, when we're too embarrassed to admit that we need help, we end up being stuck longer than we should be, all to save face. And so we end up clinging to our independence when we should be living in dependence. Come on. Yeah? We end up clinging to our independence when we should be living in dependence. My wife and I have 3 kids. Most of you know that. We've got Quinn, our oldest. Blake is our middle child. And Uriah, our son, is the youngest. And he's about 18 months now. And so he's probably the least independent of all our kids at this stage in his life. We have to put him in his crib. We have to get him out of his crib. We have to change his diaper. We have to do a lot for him still. But he even still at this age is starting to get more and more independent. He wants to do things on his own. But kids don't start out independent, right? Does this make sense? Babies are 100% on dependent on their parents to survive, yes? Babies 100% could not survive without their parents. Some of you may be in that same boat, just saying. But they can't survive without their parents. They can't change themselves. They can't feed themselves. They can't do anything without their parents. And honestly, I loved that stage. I loved that stage when my kids were, they needed me. I had to do everything for them. Like, it can be exhausting, but it's rewarding to know that my kids need me, that when they're crying and they need something and I walk into the room to handle the situation, like, their whole demeanor shifts. You know what I'm talking about? Like, it shifts because they know that somebody just stepped into the situation that can do something about it. My son, even still, when he wakes up in the morning, he wakes up crying. Every single morning he wakes up crying. But as soon as I go into the room, his eyes light up, and he throws his hands up in the air, and he's like excited because he knows that I'm going to take him out of his crib. And that's what we're called to do with Jesus. Come on. That's who we're called to be with Jesus. that my kids know that I can do something about the situation they're in, and we should know that Jesus can do something about the situations that we're in, that the struggles that we're dealing with. He can handle those things. Matthew 18, 1-4, it says this. At that time, the disciples came to Jesus and asked, "Who then is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven?" He called a little child to him, and he placed the child among them, and he said, "Truly I tell you, unless you change and become like" what? Unless you become like what? Little children, you will never inherit the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, whoever takes the lowly position of a child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And so basically what's happening here, the challenge is to be childlike, yeah? The challenge here is to be childlike. That Jesus is saying right here, children depend on their parents for everything, yes? Children depend on their parents for everything, and as kids get older, they begin to adopt this mentality of, I can do it myself. I want to do it all by myself. That's where most of my kids are at right now in their stage of life. Like, they want to just do things by themselves, but this attitude makes a bigger mess. You know what I'm talking about? With my kids, when they want to do it themselves, it makes a bigger mess, even in the little things like eating or taking a bath or going potty or brushing their teeth or washing their hands or getting dressed. All of these things can end in disaster because my kids have to do it themselves. And yes, it's good to learn and grow, right? Like, we have to get independent sometimes. We have to learn. We have to grow. These are good things. Like, I'm looking forward to the day where everybody in my house can wipe their own butt. Like, that's going to be an amazing day. I want my kids to learn. I want them to grow. But we also have to remember that there are times where we need help, and we need to ask for help. And I think that's a part of what Jesus is alluding to here, is that this childlikeness, it means being dependent on him instead of living independently from him. We need to understand that Jesus as our Father, God as our Father, loves to provide for us. Yeah? He loves to step into situations where we're struggling and we're hurting, and he can do something about those things. And we also need to understand that childlike is not the same as childish. Come on? Yeah? Childlike is not the same as childish. Childish is whining and complaining when we don't get our way. You ever do that with God? I do. Childish is I'm going to do this by myself, and I'm going to do it the way that I want to do it, even if it's the wrong way. And then we fail, and then we come running back to God so frustrated, and we're crying, and we're like, man, God, I just wanted to do this myself, but I guess you have to step in, and we're frustrated, and we're angry. That is childish. Childlike comes with a sense of humility, that we're looking expectantly to him when we're in need, because we know that he can do something about the situation that we're in. Many times, in order for Jesus to come and help us become the person that he's calling us to be, in order for Jesus to get us to the end destination on this river that we are kayaking in called life, come on somebody, in order for him to get us there, we have to get out of our own way. We have to let the current of Christ begin to take us in the direction that he is calling us to, instead of getting in our own way and getting stuck over and over and over again. And so we need to be humble and understand that we can't change ourselves, and we need to be dependent on him, knowing that he will provide what we need. Because ultimately, our independence is dependent on him. Yes? Ultimately, our independence is dependent on Jesus. That our lives, our freedom from sin and death, is dependent not on what we've done, but what he accomplished on the cross, right? Our independence, our freedom is fully dependent on who Jesus is and what he has done. And if we want freedom from our struggles, we need to learn to trade our independence for living a life of dependence with him. Yes? So I know that you guys already talked about John 15:5. That was our memory verse tonight. Hopefully you guys got points for that. And I know that you've talked about what it looks like to live a life of fruit when you're connected to Jesus. But I want to read this one more time. It's John 15:5. It says, Jesus says, I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Somebody say nothing. Apart from me, you can do nothing. This may seem like an easy, obvious question, But if you cut a branch off of a tree, how long is that thing going to live? A few days, not long, right? Eventually that thing is going to be dead. The only thing that it's good for is firewood. You know what I'm talking about? Maybe mulch if you take it somewhere and they mulch it, whatever. But eventually that branch is going to die, right? If it's cut off, it dies. Without a link, there's no life. Yes? Unless it's woven in, it's going to wither and die. Does this make sense? We see this in the natural world. We see this in the trees that we have in our yard, that when a branch falls, eventually it's just a stick. It's not a part of a tree anymore. It's just a stick. It's good for firewood. It's dead. There's no life left in it. And so if there is no link, there is no life. As I was struggling with my kayak, and it's tipped sideways, and it's full of water, and I'm struggling to get the water out, and I'm frustrated, I had this moment where I wanted to ask for help from my 110-pound friend, but it felt like asking for help would be like showing my weakness. Anybody know how that feels? Like if I say I need help, that's proving that I'm weak. And so I struggled way longer than I should have struggled. I struggled way longer than I should have struggled. And I think that some of you in here tonight, you're struggling with some stuff. In fact, I know that some of you in here tonight are struggling with some stuff. Maybe you're not even really paying attention to what I'm saying because you don't really want to have to deal with what you're struggling, what you're facing right now. But I think that there's some in here, you're struggling. And you have this, I can do it myself, face on. You've got that face on that says, I don't want anybody to know about this. And can I tell you, that's not going to help you. You're going to wind up struggling way longer than you should have. And honestly, you're creating a bigger mess in your life than what should be there in this moment. And if that's you, man, you need to know dependence is not weakness. Hear me? Dependence is not weakness. Asking for help does not mean that you are weak. It's this place of humility and surrender that says, I can't change myself. I can't provide for what I need in this situation, but I know someone who can. That's like my son when he's sitting in his crib and I walk into his room, his whole demeanor changes because he knows that I'm going to come in there and I'm going to pick him up. And if we would get that mentality, rather than I'm going to do this myself, I'm going to figure this out myself, and we remain stuck, if we would shift our focus to dependence, trusting that Jesus wants to rush into our situation and pick us up and help us in the way that we know that he can. Amen? In the clip that we watched earlier, the president's given a speech to rally his troops to defeat an enemy that he says is coming to annihilate them. Somebody say annihilate. The enemy is coming to annihilate them. And we need to understand that there is an enemy in our world. He's not an alien force. He's a demonic force, and he wants to annihilate us. Yeah? Satan, the devil, whatever you want to call him, we have an enemy that wants to destroy us. He wants to completely destroy you. And one of the best tactics that the enemy uses is a word called isolation. But we've turned isolation into a synonym, and we call it independence. Let me say that again. The enemy's best tool to destroy you is isolation. But we've renamed it and called it independence. He knows that if he can keep you alone, he can keep you stuck. Hear me? Boys, he knows that if he can keep you alone, he can keep you stuck. But Jesus said, I am the vine. You are the branches. If you will abide in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. But apart from me, you can do nothing. The cool thing about branches is that as they grow, as a tree grows and as these branches grow, you know what they inevitably do? They get tangled up together. You know what I'm talking about? They intertwine and they begin to carry one another's weight as this tree gets taller. Yes? And so we need to stay connected to the vine, which is Jesus. Hear me? We need to stay connected to the vine, but we also need to learn to lean on the branches. Because as that tree grows up, these branches begin to weave in and out of one another, and they begin to carry each other's weight. I've got trees in my yard that there are some branches that would be sagging, if not falling off my tree, if it weren't for the branch underneath them. Does this make sense? And so, yes, we need to stay connected to Jesus. We have to stay connected to the vine, but we also need to learn to lean on the branches, because I believe that there are people in your life, we have leaders in this room, including myself, that want to be a part of carrying the weight of whatever struggle you are holding on to. If you'll just ask for help, if you'll say, I'm struggling in this area, if you'll take the I've got this face off and ask for help, there's somebody who will rush in and help you hold that up. We have to stay connected to the vine. And we have to learn to lean on the branches. We don't have to hang on for dear life all by ourselves. Hear me? In the past month or so, I've gotten to have some really cool conversations with some young men who are tired of fighting alone, who are tired of carrying their burdens by themselves. About a month ago, a young man approached me and basically told me, he confessed to me, I have an addiction to pornography. And in this conversation, he told me, I don't want to be stuck anymore. I'm tired of where I'm at. I'm tired of being stuck. I'm tired of putting on this face that says everything is fine, because I know that it's not, because this addiction, not only is it killing me on the inside, but it's killing my understanding of what relationships can be, and it's killing my thought life in what women are, and it's turning them into property, and we see this happen in addictions like this. And he told me, I don't want to be stuck anymore. The first step in independence, freedom, is leaning into dependence, allowing somebody to help carry the weight of what you're holding, coming to Jesus and saying, I can't do this myself. Apart from the vine, I can do nothing. I can have no freedom. The last conversation that I had with this young man, he's doing a lot better. This addiction doesn't have him held down anymore. He may struggle from time to time, but it's not what it was. He's getting better. The weight's getting lighter because he's staying connected to the vine and he's leaning on the branches. I had another conversation with a young man at youth camp 3 weeks ago, and he told me that he's been struggling with thoughts of suicide, and that he feels stuck, and that he actually attempted suicide. And he confessed this to me because he realized that he couldn't carry that by himself anymore. If he did, he was going to stay stuck. And so that young man is leaning into the vine. He's leaning into the branches. He actually went and we had a conversation with all of the guys who came to camp, and we talked about this. And now he's got a lot more branches holding him up right now. And this is what we're called to do. This is how we're called to live. If we will learn to connect with the vine and lean on the branches, we won't have to stay stuck. We won't have to stay sunk. We won't have to remain captives to the things that hold us back from the life that Jesus has for us. You don't have to struggle alone if you will stay connected to the vine and lean on the branches. Yeah? Yeah? Maybe you're here tonight and you do have some people around you who will hold you up. You've got some good friends. You've got some good family members. You have branches around you, but maybe you're not connected to the vine. I have this one tree in my house. It's at the end of my driveway on the right side, on the south side of my driveway. And there are a lot of branches up in that tree that have broken off, but they're still hanging there. You know what those branches are? They're dead. Those branches are dead. They may be held up by other branches, but there is no life in them. And so hear me on this. You may have amazing branches in your life, but unless you are connected to the vine, there is no life. Hear me? There is no eternal life unless you're connected to the vine. And so if you're here tonight and you don't have a relationship with Jesus, whether or not you have a great family support system or friend support system, Jesus is the eternal support system that you need. And so I'm going to ask everybody in this place to bow their heads and close their eyes. And if you're here tonight and you don't have a relationship with Jesus, but you'd like to start one, what this looks like is saying, Jesus, I want you to be my Lord, which means leader. You're going to let him lead your life. You're going to let him be in charge of the decisions that you make. And I know that that sounds a little bit weird, but if you'll continue to lean into being here and being a part of what we have going on, you're going to learn and you're going to grow and you're going to learn about what that means to let Jesus lead your life. It's saying, Jesus, forgive me for what I've done because I've messed up. We've all messed up. The Bible says we've all fallen short of the glory of God. And so it's coming to Jesus and saying, Jesus, forgive me for my failures and help me to live a life following you in the direction that you want to lead me. And so if you're here tonight and you've never made that decision before, but you want to, every head bowed, every eye closed, if that's you, I want you to raise your hand right now. I see that hand. Thank you. Is there anybody else? Awesome. 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 So here's what I want to do. If that's you, I want you to come and find me after service because I want to talk through what that decision looks like. I want to help you take some next steps in following Jesus and letting him be the leader of your life. But I want everybody to look up here. For those of you who have made this decision, for those of you who have made Jesus the leader of your life, you are connected to the vine, or at least have been at one point. Listen, a branch that's cut off from a tree does not last long. We have to stay connected. Hear me? And so if you're struggling with something, I want to challenge you to begin to lean in to the vine. Lean into him on a daily basis. Stop living in independence and start living in dependence. Yes? Living in dependence with Jesus. And so here's what we're going to do. All of you have notes. Hopefully all of you have pens. If you don't, there should be one on a seat around you that you can grab. But here's what I want to do. Don't move until I say go. We've kind of been doing this all school year long, but I want to lean into this again because I really do feel like this is creating some heart change and some culture shift in who we are as a youth ministry, probably in who you are as a young person. And so on the back side of your notes, there's some prompts, there's some questions, and then there's a prayer at the bottom. What I want you to do is I want you to take that, I want you to take your pen, and I want you in just a moment to go and find somewhere in this room all by yourself. I don't want you standing by your friends. I don't want you sitting by your friends. I don't want to hear anybody talking. I want this to be a moment where you begin to connect with the vine again. Okay? Now take your pen, and I want you to write some stuff down because I believe Jesus wants to speak to your heart. Write some stuff down and just spend some time connecting with the vine. But the second part of this is I've got a couple leaders in this room, and we're just going to be available. We're just going to be around the room, okay? Because we want you to connect with the vine. That's first and most important. But you may be here tonight and you might be struggling with something that's really heavy that you need to confess to somebody or have somebody help you carry. And so me and my leadership team, we want to be the branches for you tonight. And so we're just going to be around the room. As you're praying through some stuff, as you're writing some stuff down, if you feel the need to come and talk to one of us, we're just going to be around. You can come and talk to us. We want to encourage you. We want to love on you. We want to pray with you and for you and help carry that weight for a little bit tonight. Is that okay? So number one, connect with the vine tonight. Spend some time with Jesus. Write some stuff down. Spend some time in prayer. And number two, we're going to be available to be your branches if you need us. Yeah? Lord, I thank you for these students. I thank you for what you're speaking tonight, God, and I pray that you would begin to create in us this desire, this need to come back to a heart of dependence, a heart of needing you, of wanting you, of trusting you, of knowing that you have what we need in the situations that we're in and the struggles that are causing us to have a sunken boat, and we're sitting here at the bottom of a river and the current is pushing against us and we can't seem to move. But if we will come back to you, if we will drop this face of I can do it myself, and we'll adopt a heart of humility and come dependently and expectantly to you, we know that you will step in, that you will calm our spirits, that you will speak peace into situations where it seems like it is chaotic, or that you might even heal, that you might even do the miracle that we are praying for. But Jesus, we know that we can trust you. And so help us to stay connected to you, living a life in dependence with you. We love you, Jesus. Everybody said?